For a couple of months in late summer of 2019, the South Branch of the Weber County Library, located in Roy, Utah, featured a small Star Trek collection. Organized by two members of the local Star Trek Club, it spotlighted items loaned from many members throughout northern Utah. Star Trek Under Glass is a brief telling of some of that story.
Where do you work?
I work here at the Weber County Library in the Southwest Branch. I'm an adult librarian here.
How long have you worked here?
I have only worked here for 3 months.
3 months?
I'm coming from Weber School District. I taught high school for 14 years.
What did you teach?
English and history.
Which was your favorite subject?
Both. I used to teach European history, and I love European history, and I taught English as well, honors and AP. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Were you involved at all in this process that's behind you, this display that's here?
I was not. I walked past as we were putting it up, but I wasn't directly involved, no.
Okay, so as you saw it going up, what did you know in advance?
I didn't know in advance. They don't usually tell us what's going into the display case before, but as they were putting it up, I made it a point to walk past multiple times, more than probably I needed to, just so I could go, ooh, look at that. Oh, I like that. Ooh, one day I want one of those. But yeah.
Okay, so you're a fan.
I am.
So this is, for you, this is kind of an interesting diversion. Do you collect?
I do, a little bit. Nothing near as extensive as this, or my children don't get to eat sometimes. I do collect insignia badges. I'm a big fan of the science division, but my prize possession years ago in high school, I wrote a letter to DeForest Kelley and said, I appreciate your performance, I appreciate how you expressed humanity through that performance, and so he sent me back a signed copy of a picture. And so that's sort of my prized possession that I hold on to and am excited about.
Here we are in the Roy Library, and we have a display behind us that you're pretty much responsible for the organization of. How did that come about?
It all started, we were here at one of our monthly meetings for the USS Ticonderoga, and a gentleman who had just put a display in of model cars, he came in to tell us that we could be part of this as well, that we could also rent space in this cabinet, and the lights just went on. There are so many amazing things that people have collected over the years. A lot of this was inspired by the show and tell that we have at our monthly meetings. People bring in items they collected, they have stories, they have a history, people are excited, everyone's involved in it. And this is just a continuation of that whole process of our monthly meetings. And everybody else's too. It goes far beyond just what the Ticonderoga does.
Okay, do you collect memorabilia, not just from Star Trek, but are you a collector?
The biggest thing I collect is books. I like to read.
You like to read?
So I have more books.
Okay.
I think I would be a collector. This has been life-altering for me in one way, in many ways, but I've never been a collector. But now I can see why people collect. You just get a feeling for these things. I come to this library a lot, and so every time I come, I have to look at these things. And I get why people collect.
Okay, why do you think that is?
I think people just like, there's something that happens. These pieces they're evocative. They bring in feelings. They bring in memories. They bring in the story of why you collect it. They bring in figures and people and characters that you relate to. I think that a lot of the characters they remind us of aspects of ourselves.
Star Trek folks tend to be large collectors, some of them. All kinds of different memorabilia. Why does that happen? What do we need for that?
You know, that's a great question. Part of it is, well, I found 3 major elements involved. First are those that aren't collectors for the sake of they enjoy the item. It's because they're looking for monetary benefit in some future point. They don't collect it because they want it. They collect it because they hope somebody else will. The second kind of collector is the one who collects something because of a memory that they want to hold dear. Maybe they watched Star Trek with Dad, and Dad's gone now. But Dad always thought that the old school communicators in the original Star Trek were just the coolest thing ever. And before he passed away, when he had a flip phone, it reminded him of that. And he thought that was really cool. And having a replica of that original communicator ties you to that memory of Dad. Somebody who's not here anymore, but is beyond our current realm of experience. And having that association of something that was cool to that person, something that's a relic, tying you to that person there in your hand, or there on your shelf that you can look up to and go, hey, Dad, I remember that, still ties you to that person and brings that mystical or ethereal thing that's out there, or that person that's out there, back closer to you.
Are you a collector?
Yes.
What do you collect?
Well, lots of things. I started with a collection of little mice when I was little. I've collected stamps. I collect animals, real ones, kind of in a way, but I have to limit that substantially. I like to have a uniform that's associated with each of the major Star Trek productions. So a friend had one time said that you're defined as being a Star Trek fan if you have a uniform in your closet. Well, I have about 30 in mine. So, yeah.
What is it that collecting does for us? How does that, as individuals and as members of a group, how does that?
Again, it's a common interest, and it's a place to show that interest off a little bit, being able to go and take those parts of a show that you really like or parts of life that you really like and to put it together. It's just another way to emphasize your interests.
How does that collecting thing fit? Does it make us better? How does it, does it make us weird? What is it about collecting that helps us?
I think collecting gives an opportunity for connection. It gives us a chance to own a piece of something that we love. And I think that's what this is. These are pieces that people have collected because they have a personal thought with it. They have a personal feeling with it. They've connected with it in some way. And because of that sort of love, we want to grasp that. We want to hold that. We want to be able to have that around us. And I think that's what the collection is. People will collect any number of things because of that. And I think this, especially with a show that has spanned ages, that has multiple viewing points, and has in many ways a re-energy with Discovery and then with Picard later, that people want to be involved in it and invested in it. And I think there's nothing wrong with that at all.
You have pieces in this collection.
I do.
How did that happen?
I was approached by Annie Stevens a few months back, and she just said that she just had this wonderful idea, and I could just see by the gleam in her eye that she'd already had it all figured out in her head and it was already all put together. She explained that she wanted to fill this cabinet. We meet here once a month, our Star Trek club, and she wanted to fill this cabinet full of Star Trek stuff, and I was on board from that moment on. And so anything I had, she had access to it, and yeah, I do have a few things in here.
So you're a collector?
Of other things, I wouldn't consider myself a Star Trek collector, and I have Star Trek stuff because I think a lot of it's cool. But yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a collector of Star Trek stuff. But I do have a few things. I collect cameras, matchbooks, pennies, lots of cars, lots of other stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a Star Trek collector.
So you have more pennies than you have Star Trek stuff?
By far.
By far.
Yeah.
Why do you collect stuff?
Honestly, because I think they're cool. That's really pretty much the only thing I need to know is if I think they're cool, and and I like them around me, then I collect them. And most of my Star Trek stuff I use, because I like friends, and I have a lot of friends that are in the Star Trek community, and they, when we do activities, I use my Star Trek stuff with them, and that's what really gives me joy with my stuff is I use it, specifically my Star Trek stuff.
So what do you mean when you say use?
Most of my stuff, I have like uniforms. I've got like 7 or 8 uniforms, and I have those to use them, and I wear every single one of them, and that's why I have them, is so I can do activities with the rest of my Star Trek family.
Would it be fair to say, or how fair would it be to say, that a lot of people would, after spending a certain amount of time in a group, consider it a family, or at least a second family?
Definitely. When you're in a community like that, even though it may be a diasporic community spread out over, a state or a country or the whole world, if you still feel like, hey, I'm part of this group, this community, as you get involved with those around you in that community, it very much becomes a family, not a natal family in most cases, but still a family, a unit that you look to. There's a mentor that you can reach to and say, hey, how did they do this when they filmed the show? How did they do this? And that mentor then guides you and teaches you and shows you, and somebody else figures out something else, and you go, wow, I want to build that. How did you do that? That new mentor can reach out to you and act as an older sibling almost, or a parent or grandparent type figure. In amateur radio, they always call the mentor an Elmer. I don't know where the name came from, but every ham radio operator seems to know about the Elmer. And when you need help with something, you look to the Elmer in the community to help you. In Star Trek, in the community there, sometimes I've seen groups where they have the person that they call, the captain or the admiral, who knows more about it than they do. And they say, hey, the captain knows about that. Let's go talk to him. And it depends on your local community. And then there's larger communities. But still, we look to have not only predecessors who can help us grow within the ritual, within the knowledge, within the base of the community, but then we also reach out to those that are following behind us to give them a hand up, just like children are trained by their parents and taught by their parents and guided along. It can very much become a family-like unit. It can't replace your home family, but it can definitely become a family unit in a community that strong.
Bill, what is the favorite part of your family?
Getting together with my friends. So, and my friend base, we connected when I was up at Utah State University, and those people that I met in that Star Trek club have been my dearest friends for my whole life. They've helped me raise my children. I can't imagine life without them.
That seems to be a common thread, is family. Does Star Trek engender that, you think?
Yes, yeah.
How does it do that?
Because there is nothing, I'll phrase that a different way, because again, Star Trek emphasizes not the faults of an individual, but the uniqueness of an individual. And that's what I see in the people that I work with in the Star Trek clubs that are my family. They never look at me because my size. Yeah, they do tease me sometimes because I'm short and I have a stool that I can stand on at some meetings when the podium's a little bit short. I haven't gotten the stool out for a while. But they don't judge you based on what you do. They love who you are as an individual. And the things that you do that add to yourself, your skills, your friendship, your family, just strengthen those bonds every time that you see each other.
So you said evocative, and that's a really powerful word. What does this evoke in you when you look at this?
This is a hard thing to even talk about because it just brings me to tears. I see here a history that goes long before I ever got actively involved in Star Trek. I see and hear people that come together because they have a common ground. And they came together through Star Trek. They came together through the fleet, through the individual clubs that we have. And the process of going out and meeting people at the different clubs, and how welcoming they were, and how warm they were, and how willing they were to share their stories, share the memorabilia, to trust us long enough to have these things in a display case for 2 months. It brings in for me all the love and the caring and the respect that people in this fleet have for each other, and that they've shown me since I became part of this club.
That's a pretty powerful statement.
It's been a very powerful process and adventure.
We're standing because you say there's a book there behind you in the display that's your favorite thing in here.
Yeah.
Why
yeah.
is that?
It's this little book here. It says "Fun with Kirk and Spock," and it's kind of a crossover thing for me. I have 3 families. I have my actual family, and my railroad family that I work with, and then my Star Trek family, and I love them all. And a few months back, I got sick and spent some time away from work, and a coworker that I have that's much more of a Trekkie than me got this book and took it down to work and left it there for a month or so, and everybody that I work with all signed it. So like a get well card. So all those pages in there all have messages and all that in it from all my coworkers. So that's special to me on a couple of levels. So that by far is probably the most special thing that I have.
Okay. What do you like best about the idea of this display?
I think it shows how easily it is for us as a group, as a family, to come together and pile all of our really cool stuff in one spot and show that family unity and so forth. And we can all come together. We can put together something that's pretty beautiful.
We talked a little bit about family. We talked about art or fantasy, necessity for our health. You know, all work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy, right?
You're right.
How does this fit into that?
With family, I think that connection, that joy, that sort of commonality makes family. There is nothing that ever has been said or done that is any truer than the idea that family are those that we love and care about. They don't have to be blood. They don't have to be direct descendants. This is family. I mean, Star Trek often represented that family aspect, that these are people that we love and care about and that we will do anything for.
What do you think about the collection that's been organized here?
I love it. It's fun. It adds fantasy to the reality of what life is, and we need that so badly. We emphasize math, science, English, and the arts, but the arts sometimes get de-emphasized a lot. And if we don't have imagination, you know, what of a future is there? Because we have to have an idea of things beyond what we see every single day to have a desire to want to go somewhere else.
So are you participating in this collection?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
How?
Costumes down across the bottom here. A lot of the costumes that are along the bottom are costumes that I've made.
Why?
I was poor when I started going to Star Trek conventions and things like that. I was a student, and I didn't have the money for a nice uniform, but I had a mother that taught me to sew. And I had made a uniform and worn that uniform to the first convention that I went to, and a friend of mine asked me one day, and it's always been one of the oddest questions I asked. He said, could he look in my wallet? And I said, sure. And he looked in my wallet, and it was before you had on your driver's license a mark that said that you were an organ donor. And so I have a little blue card, and I've still got it today, that says on the top of it, uniform donor. It doesn't say uniform organ donor, just uniform donor. And we were at dinner at Muldoon's, a whole bunch of us. I'd just met the individuals who are now also part of the 7th Fleet, put the fleet together. We had dinner together, and he pulled that card out of his wallet and held it up and said, hey, everybody, she's a uniform donor. She's going to make uniforms for all of us. And that was about 30 years ago now, and I've made uniforms for a lot of people in the fleet, a lot of people.
Is it fun? Do you like it?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. In all honesty, there's days where it's overwhelming because the amount of people that want uniforms is huge, and the understanding that they have of how much time actually goes into making one well is minimal. And sometimes you feel like it's very appreciated, and sometimes you don't. The most fun is when there is somebody who wants a uniform, they can't afford a nice uniform, and that's the time when I really like to make one, because even though you're not really getting paid for your time or anything like that, they're so excited to put that uniform on and to wear it. And honestly, it's freaking awesome to go into a convention and walk in with a group and everybody's in the same uniform, and the uniforms look fantastic, and you catch the eye of people. You know, that's a high. It's fun.
Was this fun?
Every minute has been an adventure and has been fun. Every minute. I look forward to it. Tina looked forward to it. People that have been involved in this looked forward to it. There was enthusiasm for it. You could see the glint in their eye, the sparkle. They were so happy to be part of this, to set things up. On the day that we set it up, we had a lot of help here. People were here for all day long, for hours setting up. It was a big group project.
How was the library when you approached them with this idea?
They were excited. I think that because it's such a community-oriented place, and Star Trek represents a lot of community, a lot of people, a lot of fans, they were very receptive and warm, very cooperative, very helpful with it. So some of the figures fell over, and one of the librarians came in and set all of them back up again and fixed some of the sleeves the way she wanted them to look.
How do projects like this enhance the library and enhance the service that the library provides to the public?
That's a great question. The library really does try and promote diversity, try and promote the acceptance of all ideas, regardless of where they're coming from, so that when our patrons come in, they're able to learn and grow. This type of display, and especially the ethos and the morals that Star Trek promoted of diversity and thought and learning and growth, this is a great representation of that. That, yeah, are there phasers in there? Sure. But what does Star Trek really represent? And it's really what the library represents, is this bastion of concern and consideration and doing our best to be better.
So my dad, I had a day, it was when I started teaching, which I just started teaching about 6 years ago, because I actually am a scientist. And I made a comment to my father about the diversity of the students and how my growing up with him and with my mom, he was a foreign student advisor. And so we always had people from different cultures in our home. And and mentioned to him how much I felt that that had impacted me in being able to look at people as individuals instead of looking at them based on color or race or nationality or anything like that, and told him thanks. And he looked at me and he said, I don't think that was your mother and I. He said, I think that's because you've loved Star Trek your whole life. And that was the first time that my dad really ever acknowledged the impact that Star Trek specifically has had on me. So it was a cool moment. So, and he also made the comment that those Star Trek people that I hang out with are pretty cool. And it only took him about 20 years to really recognize that, but they're lifelong friends.